I've got a bunch of jade plants of all different shapes and sizes in my home that I've been growing for a good few years now. There's Big Mama Jade with her girthy trunks and bushy hair, this slightly younger but equally girthy one that I call Jaden, two younglings that only came into existence this year, these 5 babies that have only just come out of the womb, and then there is Jada, who spends her days living in water, but more on why that is later. Over the years I've learned a trick or two on how to keep these lasses happy, which is no mean feat, and I'm going to share it with you in this very video so that you can grow a thriving jade plant with confidence. So let's get straight to it. The thing you'll notice about Big Mama is how bushy she is looking. The main reason for this is the short gaps between the nodes on the stem. The nodes are just where the leaf emerges from the stems, and the shorter the distance, the lusher your little gal will look. Let's compare Big Mama to Jada, the one that is living in water. Jada looks a little stretched out, doesn't she? There's a good inch or so between the nodes, and this isn't ideal. If this continues, she'll be all lanky and stretched out by the time she's a young Jadette. So why is this happening to Jada and potentially to your Jade too? Well, there's only one answer: light. Big Mama has spent her days basking in beautiful morning sunshine pretty much all her life, and so hasn't needed to get on tippy toes in search of some vitamin D. Jada hasn't been so lucky. She gets to call this spot home, and it's less than ideal. This spot does face south, which is ideal, but with all this going on above her, she just struggles to get a tan. So what does she do? She stretches her arms so that her top leaves can reach the good stuff, sacrificing a compact look in the process. Big Mama gets a good view of the sun for pretty much most of the day as it circles around my conservatory, so she doesn't have to bother herself with all this stretching malarkey, which is a relief for her because she's just getting too old for this game. Now, most people get this wrong about jade plants. They love sun. The more sun you can give them, the better. I know you've probably read or heard that indoor plants should be protected from direct sun at all costs, but this isn't really the case with jade plants. They're a type of succulent and so crave those ultraviolet rays. In fact, if the leaves are looking a bit like this rather than this, then your little lass just isn't getting enough light. This is sun stress, but in a good way. It's like the plant applying her own factor 10 just so her skin doesn't blister so much that we have to take her to hospital. Jaden achieved this look in my old house where she used to spend her days lounging on my sunny windowsill basking in afternoon sun. Things are a little crowded in my new place, so she doesn't have quite a sunnier spot, as you can see with the newest leaves. Not the same amount of purple edging. I do want to get this back though, plus I want my Jades to do something that they've never done for me: bloom. Yep, they will flower if conditions are sunny enough, and I've personally never managed to achieve such a feat, but I do have a cunning plan. This summer, I'm going to pop Big Mama and Jaden just outside on my patio steps. This is a nice southwest facing spot and they'll be living the dream. Popping plants outside during summer is a bit of a hack for epic growth, and I recommend you consider this for yours. Not only will they get great light, they will also get free nitrogen from the rain, which is plentiful around these parts, let me tell you. Now, there is something you can do to correct this legginess that I'll spill the beans on in a bit, but first we need to talk about water. Check out the legs on Big Mama. Big, thick and strong, aren't they? The older and happier a jade gets, the bigger her trunk will become. But this girthy trunk doesn't just look epic, it's also a secret weapon that will help in times of strife. As I mentioned earlier, jades are succulents and are naturally found in the dry, rocky soils of South Africa and Mozambique. These chunky stems then are designed to hold on to reserves of water during dry spells, with the empty stores getting filled up when a big rain comes along. It's exactly the same for their thick fleshy stems. A well-watered jade will have plump leaves and a firm trunk. Knowing this can tell us a lot about how we should be watering them at home. Let a jade sit in soggy soil for weeks at a time, and the roots are going to draw up too much moisture to the stems and leaves with nowhere for it to go, leaving the plant to rot from the inside. Doesn't sound pleasant, does it? Mushy leaves or stems means your jade is being overwatered and you really need to hold back. All of this is mentioned in my plant troubleshooting handbook that is linked in the description to this video, and the best part is, it's completely free to download. I crunched the numbers the other day and it's been downloaded by 25,000 planty folks from all over the world, so don't miss out on getting your copy. So how do we know when to water? I'll tell you my approach, but first it's important to not fret too much about it. They are quite forgiving plants and you really do need to mess up big time in order to kill one. Let's start from when I just watered Big Mama. Because she has quite a big pot, I know that the soil won't dry out again for at least a week and a half. This might be different for you depending on how hot and humid your home is, which is why it's always best to check the soil before you do anything. So in about 10 days, I'll come along with my moisture meter and test the soil. If it's in any way moist, I'll do nothing and come back in 2 or 3 days. I want the soil to be dry. When it is, then I'll have a little fondle of the leaves. Are they feeling plump still? If they are, then I know they've still got plenty of reserves, so I'll wait another 2 or 3 days and check again. A jade that isn't quite ready for a drink will have leaves that are difficult to bend without snapping them in half. One that is ready for water though will have leaves that are more pliable, and the stems will also feel a little less firm. Don't worry too much about giving water a little too early or a little too late. They are quite forgiving plants like I said, and the real danger is having her sit in a swampy mess. Now that she's finally ready for a drink, I don't do this. I know she's a succulent and we're all worried about giving too much, but giving a little trickle is a big mistake. Remember, those reserves in the stems and leaves are low, so we need to top them up fully, which is why we water deeply, just like the rains of Africa water deeply when they finally arrive. To be safe, I'd water over a sink or something so that excess water can trickle away and not sit in the pot. Standing water is like kryptonite to a jade. So why then is Jada able to spend all her days living in just water? Well, this perfectly illustrates a misconception lots of folks have about overwatering, including yours truly when I was just starting out collecting plants. It's not the water that is the menace when it comes to overwatering, which I know sounds strange, but instead a lack of oxygen is. I do bang on about this often in my videos, but plant roots need to breathe just as much as you and me. The thing that is sorely missing in soggy soil is oxygen. Water and soil just don't mix to create a happy environment for roots. Just water on the other hand though is fine. This is a semi-hydro setup by the way, which is basically the plant living in fancy stones sat in a pool of water, and I set this up a few months ago to prove that it's not water that does the damage. If it was, then Jada would have perished long ago. So what do we do if we don't want to bother with semi-hydro and we're still worried about overwatering? Well, there are 2 things that are really going to help you keep your jade happy. The first is soil. Keeping them in the right soil mix really will go a long way. In fact, I wouldn't bother with soil at all. Going soilless doesn't have to be about going semi-hydro. The main ingredient I use when the mixes from Cybertanica is coconut coir, which acts in a similar way to soil in the way it retains moisture, but because it's light as a feather, it won't hold on to moisture like a sponge like soil or compost does. When repotting a jade, the aim of the game is to pop her in a soil that is very free draining. The enemy is soggy soil, so we want excess water to be able to drain away as much as possible. Adding things like perlite or even sand will help a bunch too. If you're the DIY kind, then a good ratio would be something like 5 parts coconut coir to 2 parts perlite. The second part of getting all this right is the pot she gets to call home. 99.9% of my plants live in plastic pots with drainage holes in the bottom. Honestly, it just makes for a simple life. Any jade you buy in the store should come in one of these, but if they don't, take her out straight away and put her in one. So, we've covered off light and water, which are the 2 biggies when it comes to jade plant care, but the next most important thing to get right is pruning. Let's have a look at Big Mama again. The thing you'll notice about her is that she's got lots of stems growing in all sorts of different directions. This didn't just happen by divine intervention, this was your boy snipping her any chance I got. The absolute best thing about these gals is how predictable they are. Snip a stem, and in most cases 2 new branches will grow just below where we made the cut. And this is the secret to a bushy specimen like Big Mama. And we can use this to our advantage when things start to get a bit leggy like with Jada. There. All I need to do now is pop her somewhere much brighter so the same thing doesn't happen again. So what's going to happen now is that a new branch is going to form in that nook between the leaf and the stem. So we'll have 2 on this stem and 2 on this stem. Each of the stems will grow out in the same direction as the leaves. I mention this because you can use that knowledge to train your jade to grow in exactly the way you want with a few strategic cuts. Pruning is seriously one of the best things you can do, and I'm always at it. I like to wait until there are about 5 or so sets of leaves on the stem and then make a snip. I do this over and over again. It keeps things nice and compact. So what do you do with all the leftover pieces? Well, we don't chuck them in the bin because we can make brand new plants out of these in the shape of something like this, or even something like this. These are 2 stem cuttings that I popped into their own pots a couple of months ago, and before long I'll have 2 more big mamas on my hands. This, on the other hand, is a collection of individual leaf cuttings that have successfully rooted, and we can now start to see the first shoots appearing. I'll show you exactly how to prep these in the video over here, so make sure you check it out next, and I'll see you there.